All right, welcome to the second episode of the Super Lap Battle build car build. We've got basically my first full day's work on the wiring here, and I'll also talk about the wiring system in general. The car is going to be all Motec for the main parts. We've got a C1212 dash, which is going to be the data, and 1/3 of the screen will be for the rear view monitor. The rear view camera mount back in the clam, and so the driver can see out the back. We're going to be using an Exige rear clam on this with just a blanking sheet on the back, so there wouldn't be any ability to use a rear view mirror, so it has to be a camera. We went with 2 PDMs, which ended up, I didn't really appreciate how great that was going to be in the beginning, but as a result, the main trunk from the front to the back of the car is only this big. And in my personal build that I just finished, the main trunk from the front to the back of the car is a lot closer to this big. So it saved a ton of wiring, paid for itself easily in labor and parts. So that was great. We've got a dial pad for controlling the dash for the driver, and we'll put a couple of functions on the dial pad, maybe start stop so it's not on the steering wheel, maybe something else that you want to have critical, if you press it, you really meant it. We're using the steering wheel mount from Blink Marine. So typically these aren't set up to work with Motec, but our vendor, Motorsport Electronics, shout out to Tim, who's great over there, set this up and gave us the configuration for this to work with a Motec dash natively. So we'll be able to pass, 12 buttons to Motec plus 4 dials. And the dials can also be buttons, and they can be, require a button to confirm so you don't accidentally turn it when you're on the track. We're gonna mount all of the pressure sensors on a remote pressure block like this. So we've got a couple of 100 PSI sensors in here just to demonstrate it. We'll have dual lambda for each bank, get the most accurate fueling we can get. Dual Bosch NOx sensors. I think I stole the second one from my car, so don't tell Chaz. Solenoid valve for the turbo boost control, ID 1700 injectors to handle the fuel load needed. We believe those are good for around 1100 horsepower at 90 PSI was my math, if I'm remembering right, but we'll see how that goes. Up in the front of the car, we don't have it yet, but we'll have a Bosch ABS system in this. That would be, relatively here, relative to everything else. That will talk to the Motec, let us have the IMU signal from the Bosch to help with the traction control in the car, so you'll have more traction control when you have lateral Gs and vice versa. It will obviously give us really strong ABS control, and it just works, which was great in the last build we used it on, so we'll definitely be using that whenever the budget allows from now on. We've got rotary position sensor here for the throttle pedal, which will talk to the main harness through a little flange like this. We'll be doing everything we can to have all the sensors plug into something whenever they're not, a typical engine sensor in the middle of the harness. Another example of that would be, actually this is the steering wheel flange. So since the steering wheel is using a CAN-based system here, we only need to have power and CAN going out to the steering wheel, and then we've also got 2 extra wires in there for a future radio button if we need it. But we probably don't even really need to do that, because we could set up the ECU or the PDM to output on a low to ground the radio switch and send that signal over CAN. So the power to change things in the future with the CAN-based controllers is great. As far as the actual wiring itself goes, we've got 2 separate harnesses that are kind of almost done. I built them up and then ordered the connectors I needed for the bulkhead when I got finished, just because I made a couple of decisions while I was still wiring them up and didn't want to get those here and find out I needed 2 more pins or so on. So we will go to the front of the car with these 2. We've got the higher power wires and then just the signal wires. They'll go through a bulkhead similar to the one on my car. If you've seen one of our other videos about that. Then there'll be a separate harness for the front of the car. There's the harness for the dash area, the front of the cabin. That'll tie to the rear of the cabin here. Half of these wires, well, not half of these wires, some of these wires will be the ones that join up to the front. Most of these will go through the bulkhead to the engine. Then in the engine bay, we will have the rear PDM, so the engine will have its own electrical system, doesn't have to go through a bulkhead, a little bit less weight, having all the wires locally as well. So this will run like the oil cooler fan, the transmission cooler fan, the coils, the ignition, the rear tail lights, the brake lights, the reverse lights, that kind of thing. And that's kind of the gist of where we are on the electrical right now. There's obviously a ton more work to do to finish out the harness, probably 30 or 40 hours of wiring work alone, plus some planning on the engine bay. This will be the first time I wire, oh, sorry, that won't be, it's not true. My first commercial wiring job was actually on a 2GR, but it's been a couple of years since I did that. And I'm kind of, you know, the way I do things is going to be quite a bit different now. So there'll be a bunch of learning on the 2GR wiring harness and how to integrate the ABS into this harness, but we'll do our best.